Oh my gosh, this is so funny if he's on the so dramatic like Batman.
12 students, 10 weeks, 100 new artworks, 1 teacher. A few months ago, I did the unthinkable and mentored a group of artists to take their portfolios from good to the next level. Out of 100 applicants, I chose the 12 students that either had strong skills, but their portfolios just didn't have like a standout project, or they had enough projects, but they just needed that final push to get them closer to a professional level. This is their stories. So today we're going to narrow in on 2 of my students and see how they took their own original idea from week 1 and made a complete final portfolio project by week 10. Yes, I know, a tight schedule, but with the right motivation and teacher, you can do just about anything. So if you want to get notified when my next character design mentorship opens up, why not sign up to my newsletter? I also send out art tips, freebies, and updates. Alright, so without further ado, let's sit back and watch 50 hours of footage that I painstakingly edited down to 25 minutes for your enjoyment.
During a school trip, 2 siblings, an older brother and a younger sister, get transported into this magical world and go on a quest through 6 different biomes searching for someone to send them home. As I said before, I wanted to go into the more like magical fantasy realm.
So I decided to go with cryptids like Bigfoot, Mothman, the Jersey Devil, and the Chupacabra. And the idea is that they find this little girl's kind of like a Monsters Inc. like situation. She's lost, they're taking care of her, and they have an FBI agent after them, and they're trying to hide and keep their existence secret. So that's the idea.
This is so much fun. The first thing that I see is, oh geez, I want this hunter to be bigger. It looks like, and I pulled up some Sleepy Hollow, like we want this like intimidating pursuer, right? Scary and big. Or it could be like this goofy like character, but like it kind of seems like you can have some more serious moments. So I kind of feel that I want this horse, I want this character to look like no one else can ride this horse, because that's how like intimidating it looks, where he's looking down on everybody. I really, really like this character. Like when I look at her holding like food for me, it makes me want to go and ask her for help during my like adventure. I'm gonna try, even though this is like very stylized and pushed, like to push it even further. Like what if some elements were squished even more? What if some elements were even like wider? It's cutting it exactly halfway through, so I'm wondering like maybe it's cutting it a little bit lower, or maybe it's cutting it a little bit higher, different proportions. And then I'm wondering like if the headpiece was a little bit bigger. I see that you've separated these moments pretty evenly. The shapes you have is really cool. It's about like finding those smaller ways to split up your proportions in a more even way. So maybe this one is smaller, this one is the biggest, and this one is medium shape, right? Like you always want to find your little, big, and medium shapes within every single shape. That's how you create something really interesting. I think it's really cool. I feel like it's the shadow entity that he calls out, but I think it would be also really cool if it was kind of interacting with him a little bit more in like this moment. Like what if it's kind of going over his shoulder? It's connected to him and it's not just a character behind him. You can tell exactly that this is like that group of misfits, and then this is like that guy trying to track them down. So I think that works really well. And I think your lineup looks great, how, you know, you could see that this is kind of like the paternal figure to this character. It's really about like narrowing those details and trying to find ways to keep rhythm, but kind of break it up a little bit. Like when I look at this, like all of these are very much that same pattern. Even with this shape, like we have this leg looking like this, we have this leg looking like this. And if you squint your eyes, like this is another leg coming down. It's the exact same shape. The negative space is the same shape as the other thing. So like, what if this other leg was sticking out further to kind of change the way that the legs are spread, right? A subtle thing like that would like break up that shape. And even having like points like this behind points like this, points like that, like You know, this doesn't have to be a point. This could be like a closed off thing to contrast all the points on his body. And like same with like what I said earlier with this negative space being the same as the like filled space. I think that you could stand from simplifying shapes because there's a lot of curves in here and there's a lot of like things happening to him. So like what if we simplified the shape where it was straight and then like most of it was straight except for a little bit of a change at the top, right? Or something like that in a way that, because the stick isn't the important part, like it doesn't need so much twists and turns because he has so much twists and turns. I think that at this point, it's kind of considering like how much can you simplify without taking away the essence of the character. I think this like showcases the character's personality like so much stronger. I love that you have variations of like what a long one looks like or like what a short one down here looks like with all of your different like shapes with like inverted triangle and stuff like that. Honestly, I think even rotating it further more to show more of that volume because his backpack is the thing that's this like huge, big and different shape from the other ones. So like having it more to the side and then you could have that arm in front with like all this stuff like there. I think that would be kind of even more of a different shape than the rest. One character that I am kind of missing is this one. Like, I feel like this is like a fun dynamic where, because everybody's a mythical creature and they're all like these funny, goofy guys, like the grounding character is here, but because she's young and she's also goofy, like who's grounding her? Is it this guy?
Yeah.
I kind of felt like this character was her older sister. She got lost in the forest. She's like, oh my God, we have to get home. Parents are freaking us out. Where are we? You ran off and I had to chase you. And then the little girl's like, look, I made friends. I think then this character doesn't have to be that crazy, but like if you wanted him to be more of like this scary like dude, then that would also be that good contrast because now you have this crazy like losing her mind character. So I kind of would like to see her back in that lineup. I think you have to push scale a little bit. A lot of these characters are all the same height. I like that you're showing like something about her, like with the water. I think that shows like a lot of her personality. I would like for the other like magical characters to show some of what they do, to showcase that these are the only human characters and these are all like magical entities that are like larger than life, right? And how can you show that they're larger than life, right? Really playing with the scale of these characters. I'm kind of imagining them as like gods. So why do they have to be even in the realm of reality of what a normal person's size is? She's really dramatic that I'm even imagining like pushing these moments like even more where her eyes are this huge like drips are coming off. I could just imagine how sad and scared she's like, oh my God. I think that something like this would even like push this moment even more. And I think that a way to add to this humor, like what if she had like sticks coming out of her hair? Because like not only is she exhausted, but she was just looking for her sister for such a long time and now she's like dirty and like there's dirt and like stuff all over. And she's just like so exhausted. Like I think that she is such a great opportunity to push because she's so like cartoony. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. If he's on the he looks so dramatic like Batman. Such a contrast from this character where she's so big in her acting. And then this Mothman, he's very like more subtle in his acting, but he's still so dramatic. I would like to see one action pose, one pose of like what happens in the story where he's doing something like quite active. Like how would he approach like doing something more active? The characters' personalities are a lot more evident and stronger, I think. The one thing that I look at when I look at this lineup and I squint is, yes, you have like all different silhouettes and it's very interesting, but a lot of them do line up at the same height, trying to find variation, like maybe with this guy, maybe, I don't know, maybe you make his hat smaller just so he has like a much different lineup. Like with her hat, it's really tall, which is nice, but if you're trying to make it tall, maybe either make it a little bit taller, but maybe that'd be really difficult for acting. It's just that right now these three characters really like end up in the same area. But you know what I think could make this pose a little more interesting? He looks like very timid, so maybe it looks like he's getting scared and he's like holding the light on his face. Imagine like a little bit of asymmetricalness where his feet are facing in on each other, like his shoulders are up, like his head is looking like right up at the thing. I think even funnier would be like if he doesn't care, his eyes are more like, this doesn't matter to me. Maybe even his upper body is stiff and then his lower body, his legs are just like flying in the wind. It's just like being ragdolled around, except for his upper body is like ultra stiff, right? Like I think this pose works well, but we have to think like, what is he like jumping from, right? Is it there a fire under him? Would he be looking down in that case? Is he scared of something? I'm kind of really trying to find that motivation behind this pose of like why his shoulders are down, his neck is super high, instead of like someone's scared, their shoulders are up. What if like you even went even crazier with that perspective? You could even push it even further. I always recommend pushing it until you break it. Like seeing how far you can go until realizing like, oh my God, this looks crazy. I can't show this anymore, right? That's when you know you've gone too far. It's tough to have characters where their limbs are just black, right? Because they change a lot in consistency. Like maybe they're skinny at one point, maybe they have shape at another point. Here, like the legs are just sticks, but here they have feet, right? So I actually prefer like this arm because it shows like it has form. Could all of these characters be a slightly different color? Like this character's red and this character's red. Maybe like she should be red and he should be, well, I guess he's green, but like maybe there's another color. I guess he's supposed to be more orange. Well, maybe you could lean it more to like a yellower. Yeah, the colors work a lot better of like it being clearly orange, very different, a little more purple, some green, some blue. You have the full value spectrum, but you have a lot of really dark darks. Is there really a purpose of it being like this hat being this dark when it can be like a little bit lighter? Kind of going in and deciding if things would be a little bit more clearer to read. Because I think this is really cool that he's like trying to catch on and then he's like, oh, I'm normal. I would focus on like pushing his body to like really feel like he's like in charge and like making the wind feel crazy. So pulling his hair back a little bit, making his chest really come out and how excited he is. And then that would emphasize how nervous he is. And like, is his backpack like being yanked like way behind him? I'd like for you to push that line of action. So like he's protecting him and he's holding him, but he's still very engaged in telling his story. And then you won't believe what happens next. It's incredible. And then like him, is he comfortable with this guy so much that he's leaning towards him for comfort? Or is he like kind of like, oh my God, this guy is crazy. I only have myself to rely on, and he's looking at him and he's like leaning away, right? We only have one moment to see what he thinks about this guy. Just be sure to have a space for your name that doesn't get like lost, like the whole point. But at the end of the day, it's a page that has your name in it. And you don't want things to be so busy that the name gets lost. So like if all this stuff is happening a little bit more here, it's a little bit tighter, and then the man is like this, and then the cloud is like kind of coming behind your name, like that would be a nice way to like showcase your name. These are so sweet and gentle. Like you could tell that she's this excitable character and he's this like much calmer presence. So I think we can kind of push that dynamic even more. This is so sweet. there's a lot of these beautiful, like sweet moments, but is that happening all the time? Or like a moment of conflict where she's like pulling his hair because she's so excitable. But kids, like, they always take everything too far, right? Maybe she's yanking on his hair, then they're a little bit more further their heads, because their heads are always very close together. That would like further their heads and make their bodies like that, like conflicting angle. Show us more conflict, show us more like how he deals with her, like her extreme side. Like, does he stay calm in every situation? The one thing, I really liked that 3/4 view though. Why did you change it? Interacting, I feel like there's a lot more storytelling. Here, I think that this arm, you can move it down to clear some space and also to create a more interesting shape with, you know, when hands are leveled versus when a hand is like that, you can create a lot more interest. So I want this arm to come down, and then we have a little bit more space here where we could see that she's like flying in the sky. The values work a lot better. Like, not everything's so completely dark. The textures are really nice. About her water, I think that, you know, when things go into a thin point, it looks like a string, right? And you don't want this effects to look like that. So I would make this line like colored, and then I would bulk it up as well. I think that makes just the effect like stand out a little bit more and like showcase her powers. And the one thing that's bothering me now is that we can't see 3 characters' eyes, which means we can't connect to 3 characters. Like, having one character mysterious, like if this is your mysterious character, it's like, oh, okay, like what's she about? Like with this character, like we can really like see their soul, but with these ones you can't, right? So I'd consider like maybe like this character you can see his eyes, and like really like deciding who you want to not see their eyes. And if you don't mind her having her eyes seen, and then we can see like who she is more as a person, if she's like gentle and nurturing and like slightly smile, like maybe you're okay with that and that we can see that. So you have your portfolio, and then you'd have your splash page up here. I think the overall composition works really well. You know what I actually would think would work better is if you made them all a little bit smaller to give it more space, and then you can add a bush up here and put your name in the bush. If there's a background element, you know, kind of separate the composition a little bit. And then I think that it's important to check your values, because your characters have the most extreme values where it's the lightest of light and it's the darkest of dark, but your background is also like that. You have the darkest of darks and you have the lightest of lights, right? So like as you go very back in the background, like it's a lot more condensed as just lighter, which I think is really great. But your mid-ground is still like a lot of extreme lights versus a lot of extreme dark. Her hair is so black, and then you have this elastic that's like white. And then right here you have this inside of his jacket that's like basically black. And like, why not have it very light, like this color, where it like fades back so it's not so loud. So her hair is the darkest part of here, and this doesn't compete with it. You know who I miss? I miss your biker goat. That was such a funny character. If you do want to continue and you want to pop him in, that would be pretty cool. I wouldn't be against it, but you can keep it as it is. It's fine. I think your concepts are very well placed, and they each on their own page. Normally I would suggest coloring one of them, but because they're rendered in a way that like is basically what it would look like in color, that I'm like, well, I don't really see the need, unless you want. Oh my god, she's so snotty. That's so funny. Yeah, these expressions are very solid. I feel like it's come a long way in terms of acting. It's so pushed. You have your turn. You know, in your design, he's got a lot of scales. You have to decide, like, well, how is he gonna look like animated? Like the way that you rendered it, like this is where you get to show. It could even be cell shaded. Like it could be like a blue to show that it's not like a black line or it's a gray or whatever. You know, like how is the animator going to interpret your design in a 2D way, for example, right? So I would suggest putting in those scales in maybe a lighter shade. Yes. Your title says visual development illustration. I think it'd be really beneficial to see some environments of like where their hideout is, what their like treehouse looks like with all them living there, all their mismatch, even an interior shot of like how everybody decorated their own space in this like janky cabinetry or whatever, right? The work that you have now is so much stronger than this, but there are some pages that I'm looking at, I'm like, holy shit, like, oh my God, like these visual development moments I think are incredible. Doing moments like this for your woodland project I think would be like really pushed, and I really love these environments, and so I want to keep this in your portfolio, but I think that the characters are a lot weaker than your current skill set. What is this? Wait a second. Wait a minute. There's...
Yeah, sorry.
Oh!
I designed it really poorly. I'm like so bad. Like,
yeah, girl, your website is crazy. Yeah, that's okay. This is a really cool project. I really like the idea, and your visual development is... I can't believe I've never seen your VizDev work before, because this is very cool. This is some very cool stuff. I think these characters are a lot stronger than your Wizard of Oz project. And yeah, it's very much about prioritizing what you want to expand and removing what is currently not your best, because it's going to take a long time to get your like full portfolio up to date. I would personally, what I would do is I would make one scroll through portfolio. So you have this project, and then at the end of this project, you have the new splash page for your below the surface, and then below that you have your two VizDev moments for your Wizard of Oz. And then that could be like one expansive portfolio for now, and then you go in and you like revamp it as you go. The way you presented it at the beginning of the class versus now is night and day. Like this is very like clear read on everything. And I guess like that's on improving. So before we get into your main portfolio, let me just take a look at some other stuff you have. If you want to show something that's more VizDev and more that like is concept art for something, I would take out the ones that look more like background moments like this, like from a cell, and more that look like VizDev moments, so like maybe like this. And I would show as well, if it's VizDev, more like thumbnails of how you got there, and more like exploration, color keys, something like this. Like this shows like a lot more in your design process than these final background images. So I can't wait for the splash page to be finished. I think this is gonna look very good. I like, you know, foreground, you have this. I think this tree also like helps separate this from this. Like there's a lot more space. It feels a lot less crowded. Your composition is solid. I can't believe the difference from when you started to where you are now. Like all the scale heights and the colors and the way that we see their personalities in every moment, I think is very solid. And you had so much solid concept work with all your characters, and I know you ran out of time, but I'd love to see more pages, especially when you even showed up on week 1 with already done like designs. I think that we can, like, you could find a way to throw that in. We see she's blind, but the nurturing aspect, not so much. This one feels like, oh, she's bringing home like food for her family or whatever. But ones like this and this, I want to see a little bit more of that personality. Something that ties her to her character that we see in other moments a little bit more. I think that all your concept work should show their personalities a little bit stronger. Make those personalities very clear in the concept pages, so we could really tell visually who these like gods are from that first glance. This is really funny. You can really see how mischievous he is. You know, I'd be a little wary of moments where, you know, his foot size is very different than like this foot size. This foot would be a lot bigger if we were trying to match that. Like look at his calf here versus like his calf here. I feel like your poses are strong and your characters' personalities are strong, but I think that like a big struggle is like keeping on model. So I think that that's something you should be focusing on a lot moving forward on your own, is trying to look back and seeing how you can keep these moments on model. I'm very looking forward to see like these biz dev moments come to life, because especially if you're going to expand it more and you're going to do more biz dev moments, and maybe you'll have an end page of it. That could also be like a fun way to end this project. But I see that you're going to like do a lot to it and you're going to expand it more. So I'd keep it as open-ended as possible with being able to like put more stuff in as you can. I agree. I think that your last 2 projects are your weakest ones, so I would also cut them. I think that these 2 projects are very cool. These characters are also very cool, but now you know that like I don't like seeing the same pose like more than once. So this is basically the same pose over and over. I could see how you can condense this down into like 4 pages, right? Like you can have 1 page of a lineup, just choosing your favorite characters and removing some other characters. You can make 1 page that's like all your concept work. So you take these, you'd put it here, you'd remove some of these ones that are repetitive. I feel like you learned so much about personality during this class. This page could benefit from like more expressions of poses. This is your strongest work. Obviously it's your most recent and you did it like as a mentorship. And I'm looking at this older work and I'm thinking, oh, like you could expand upon it if you want. But I'm kind of actually thinking like, if you want to keep it in, I would suggest either redesigning it. And then I'm like, well, why redesign an old story when you could just make up a new story, right? So that's what I'm thinking, like down the line, it'd be kind of nice if you actually eventually removed these pieces, because I feel like you're in a completely different spot than you were then. Like there's cool viz dev moments in your Hydro project that I think would be fun to keep in. But in terms of character design, I'm actually like giving you this advice, and the whole time I'm like, yeah, but I don't think you should. You know? That's the hard truth I'm giving you today. I think you should just have this, expand upon it, you know, take your time with it. I think that it's very solid.
Either the application or the email, it was written there like, oh, you're going to do a lot of work that you didn't think you're capable of. And I think that like perfectly describes mentorship. The amount of work and the quality of work that I've been like able to do in this mentorship, I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. Like I never thought I'd be able to do a project like this like so fast. So yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone that like gave feedback and like gave help on this part as well. And of course you with the class. So yeah, I'm just really happy.
I'm so proud of my students for the growth that they've achieved in only 10 weeks. Their storytelling is stronger, their eye for design is stronger, all their fundamentals have really strengthened. And it made me see like on another level how much I love teaching, which I think is really cool. Speaking of teaching, why don't you keep your eye out for something very special by signing up to my newsletter. You'll be the first to know about it, and you'll be the first to know when my next mentorship opens up. I've linked Emily and Eric's portfolios below in the description so you can take a look at their artwork yourself. And why don't you give them some love? Give them some love in the comments. Why don't you, huh? Okay, everybody, I'll see you next time. Bye.